Welcome back into the mental game, where this week's guest is NFL insider Adam Schefter.
It's not an easy time. It's not easy to be 31, single.
Yeah.
You know, I was living in New York City, and you'd think, I'm working for NFL Network at the time. You'd think, oh, this is a great life. And again, I should have been really happy. And I just felt like there were things missing in my life. And that was lonely for me.
And in this episode, Adam opens up about what it's like to be ESPN's senior NFL insider, building relationships with players, coaches, and teams, and breaking stories 24/7. But he also shares his own mental health journey, where he started in journalism with those struggles early in his career, but also that feeling of being alone, being sad, depressed in New York City before meeting his wife and starting a family. All of that and so much more in this amazing conversation. But first, I want to tell you about Man Therapy. And guys, I am talking to you because, look, we have to be comfortable being vulnerable and talking about how we feel. That's why I want you to go to mantherapy.org today to find amazing tools and resources to take the best care of your mental health. But now it is time for the latest episode here on The Mental Game with Adam Schefter. Welcome back into the mental game. As you can see, I got a very special guest sitting next to me, Adam Schefter, ESPN senior NFL insider. And your phone's away from you. You have another one. You got two.
I have one right here.
You got one right here just in case. But Adam, thanks so much for coming on the mental game, my man.
Thank you for having me, Brandon. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're taking a break right now. You got NFL Live coming up here in a couple hours. We're just outside of the ESPN campus in Connecticut. I've been a big fan of your work, working in sports journalism myself. So I've loved to watch your career grow, you breaking these stories, telling these stories, but also appreciate how open you've been maybe with some of your personal journey, your family story, and things throughout your career. So I want to go through all that in this interview. But the first thing I start with everyone on the mental game is just, what does mental health mean to you? And it's a very unique thing because we all go through different journeys, but we all experience this thing called mental health. Yeah. But I'll start with that. What does mental health mean to you?
Well, I think it's something that has come into the light right now. Yeah. And it's acceptable to talk all about it. It's acceptable to talk about things that people have been through. It was not always the case.
Sure.
It was viewed and frowned upon almost a decade ago, 2 decades ago, whatever it would be, when at a time where it would have been useful for me to get some of the mental health probably that I would have needed at that particular point in time. And now it's something that I think is so prevalent that it's become mainstream, which in a way is a very good thing for everybody who's trying to address their mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this if that stigma wasn't changing. I'll get into your story, but just bringing up the NFL stigma, one of the first guys I had on was Joe Thomas, and he talked about this trip home with his wife after losing to Brady for in his final season, thinking this was finally going to be the time the Browns are going to beat the Patriots. And he said he broke down with his wife in the car and just lost it. And that was the first time he ever cried in front of his wife, the first time he ever thought about his mental health. And the Browns were ahead of their time in the NFL in that category. They had 2 or 3 team psychiatrists, mental health coaches, and he started right then getting help. So I'll segue from that story. How have you seen that in the NFL change? I mean, I'll get into my story a little bit later, but it's completely changed. Guys are way more open than before.
Well, you're talking about your journey, right?
Fair,
this is a mental health podcast.
Yeah.
There are outlets and avenues for this that never existed before.
Yeah.
Right? Teams have added full-time employees to speak to the players, the members of their organization. It's almost like it's become something like nutrition.
Yeah.
Where teams added nutritionists, and that at one point in time seemed revolutionary.
Yeah.
And now it's become more common to where everybody's got people to speak to within an organization. People are out there with podcasts speaking about these issues. There's nothing to hide from anymore. So it's a great thing, but I just think how accepted it's become in our society today is the biggest indication of where we come in the world of mental health.
Well, it's all changed for all of us. And a lot of us, especially men, maybe working in sports too, or being athletes, are way more open. And that can help other men who might be comfortable being more vulnerable. You growing up, I was a sports nerd where I knew this is what I wanted to do from day one. How did the sports journalism come on your radar? I know obviously you went to Michigan and Northwestern, two great schools when it comes to journalism, and you're a lead NFL reporter now, an insider. But where did that dream come from?
Well, I always loved sports growing up, but I never would have imagined that you actually could make your living in this particular space. Like, nobody ever said to me growing up, I was very fortunate. I had two loving parents, but they never said to me, you can do anything you want to do. Like, when I speak to young people today, I say, if you want to be a football general manager, you can do that. If you want to work for a team and whatever, you can do that. If you want to be the president of the United States, you can do whatever you want to do. But I really thought that in the world of sports, those were jobs for other people.
Sure.
And when I went to the University of Michigan and I got rejected from a fraternity my freshman year, I went down to the football office to pick up, to see if they needed somebody to pick up jock straps and hand out water bottles, and they didn't. And went to the basketball office to see if they needed somebody, and they didn't. And I've been rejected from the fraternity, football office, basketball office. I've always been the kind of guy that liked to stay busy. And so I decided at that point in time, only because nobody else would give me an opportunity to volunteer for the student newspaper, which turned away nobody. Sure. Nobody. And that is how this came to be, because I really believe that had I gotten into the fraternity, I would have been so focused on all the activities within that organization that I never would have volunteered for the student newspaper. I never would have fallen in love with gathering information, writing stories, and pursuing the career that I did. It never would have happened if I had gotten into the fraternity or the football or basketball office had given me a chance. So, I always tell people, like, rejection sometimes turns out to be the greatest thing that could ever happen to you.
Yeah, it's a weird spot to be in, whether it's professionally, personally. Rejection, it takes a shot at your pride and can put down your confidence or maybe chasing a dream. So that being said, when did you fall in love with the idea of chasing those stories and interviewing the athletes and telling maybe the things that you can't see on the field?
Yeah, well, it's a whole big process, right? Like, it's going down to the student newspaper. It's then saying, wow, this is kind of cool to do. And then I remember there was this reporter for the Detroit Free Press named Thomas George, who I was flying to a basketball game my junior year, and he was on my flight, and I was aware of all the sports reporters, and somehow I was fortunate enough and lucky enough to get to talk to Thomas, and he was like one of the very first people who said, you could become a sports reporter if you want. I'm like, really? What? He's like, and almost that planted the seed with me that, well, maybe we can do this. And in my senior year, Mitch Albom was the columnist for the Detroit Free Press, incredible writer, used to read and memorize his columns, and he had me be a research assistant for a book that he was writing at the time on Bo Schembechler, the Michigan football coach. Yeah. And I was like, well, how much do I have to pay? He was like, no, I'll pay you to be my – I'm like, really? I get paid to do this job, like work for you and get more experience? And so it was a whole big process, like, okay, I'm going to – maybe I can try this. Maybe I can do this. Oh, I think I can do this. And then you get your first job after 2 years of rejections. Yeah. And it's in Denver, Colorado. And that's when you begin to learn the value of information and what news stories mean and how people react to them. And 16 years on a beat where the Broncos are as important to Denver as the Vatican is to Rome, or the White House is to Washington. That's how important the Broncos are. Yeah. And you're covering that team in a newspaper war, and I think you learn a lot pretty quickly. Sure. And so I was fortunate in that regard. And then, again, you get some stories, and you kind of like it. It's like anybody in any field, a musician, write a song. Oh, it got some reaction. Well, that was kind of, let me write another song. Yeah. And then you write another song. And I've never been a musician, but I would imagine it's probably similar. Or an architect. Let me design a building. Oh, I'm good. Like there were some people that said this kind of works. Yeah. Like, let me try another building. Oh, that got even more favorable reaction. And you just gain more and more experiences as you go along to where all of a sudden you look back like, wow, I've been doing this for 35 years now. Yeah. There's a lot of songs that have been written. There are a lot of buildings that have been built. There's been a lot of stories you've wrote, stories you've told. A lot of stories. So getting to work in Denver, I mean, that reminds me on my journey. I was in Baton Rouge for 3 years covering LSU. I mean,
like Denver and the Broncos, LSU, and the whole state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
They're nuts, and rightfully so. Yeah, it's religion. It really is. Getting those, I always say I grew up in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like I grew up a lot personally, professionally. When you look at those years in Denver, do you think that is where the kind of life changes for you, not just professionally, but personally, where you are growing up in your 20s, getting into your 30s, you're seeing some success in the job, you've seen that you can make money, maybe not as much as you wanted to at that time. Sports journalism isn't always the best paying career, but you started to grow up in those years.
Well, I always tell people that I got my undergraduate degree from Michigan, I got my master's from Northwestern, and I got my graduate degree from Denver Bronco U.
Perfect.
Because you're in that building every day for 16 years, and at that time you're single, you're immersed in your career. There's nothing else to do but to throw yourself into that job. And that's what I did. And I learned a lot about the business. Probably slow to get to life. That's a whole other story. But it just takes on so much. And really, I think this job and any job that you care about, it requires an incredible amount of sacrifice and dedication, and you give up a lot to immerse yourself in a job. And that's what that job entailed. But it was incredible. And, you know, it's in my soul. The Broncos had me back in February this year. The owners of the organization invited me back to address 300 employees.
It's awesome.
About what it's like to work in Denver and what that team means to the city. And I got to speak to the organization for an hour at their annual meeting where they review everything. And I was able to bring my son and my daughter.
That's awesome.
And they got to see where I'm like, I took them into the media room. I'm like, see this room, which is smaller than this little space that we're in right. I lived in this room for 16 years. That plastic chair, that was mine, you know, like, so I got to share my world with them. But that chapter of my life, it holds such a personal spot in my heart, and it means a lot to me.
Well, it built you and set those, you know, those marks where you could build to get a job at ESPN and be one of the biggest.
But I wasn't thinking that at the time.
But you weren't thinking at the time. That's okay. I don't know. You don't have any of that in your, like, deep down going, hey, I want to be in Bristol. I want to be.
No, I will say that I did look at guys like Will McDonough and Chris Mortensen as guys like, wow, if I could do that one day, that would be unbelievable. But even that seems like, wow, that's a lot. That's ambitious. Who knows if it'll ever happen? And I honestly was content with the idea that, okay, well, maybe I'm just going to be covering the Denver Broncos for the rest of my life. And if that's the case, I'm going to be the best beat writer that ever lived. Like, that's how I tried to operate. And then as that happens, by the way, 16 years covering the team. 16.
It's a long time.
It's a long time. Like, it felt like it was going to be forever. And, you know, I covered the Broncos as many years as I've now been at ESPN, 16 and 16. So I know that people, I feel like in certain ways I've been at ESPN for 60 years.
Sure.
But I actually spent as much, if not more time, covering the Denver Broncos beat than I have at ESPN covering the National Football League.
Which is incredible. It's an awesome journey. And the fact that you might not have even like had that on your bucket list or said, hey, I want to go out and grab this at ESPN, but you become this, is pretty cool in my book. I mean, you never know what's going to happen.
It just happens by putting in the time that you did. And again, that was something that exceeded the dreams that I would have had, but you're working so hard and sacrificing so much. And by the way, like, love doing it. So I don't regret or second guess any part of it. But all I'm trying to do is to be the best beat writer I can be. And lo and behold, after 16 years, you get an opportunity to go to the NFL Network. And after 5 years there, you get the opportunity to go to ESPN. And here we are today sitting in this office space in Bristol talking to you, Brandon.
Perfect. It's a cool journey. I do want to ask, though, because you said we'll get to that later. I want to get to it now about the life-work balance. I mean, you didn't say those exact words, but this job, working in journalism in general, I think most people know it can be taxing. But when you're under a spotlight, maybe as you were on a beat like Denver or now ESPN, I mean, you'll probably be on TV in 10 minutes while we're sitting here, you know, talking about something that's going on in the league. How do you balance that? Did you struggle with that in those early years in Denver when you're trying to make it, but you might not know anyone, so you're trying to make friends, you're maybe going out, things like that? How did you balance those two?
Well, my job has always meant so much to me. I probably was more immature and less experienced. So on the weekends, you would go out, and I was interested in my dating life, and probably put energy into that. Now that I'm married to a great lady and have 2 children and 4 dogs, like there's a certain focus. We are very content never going out. Yeah. So literally, my wife is a homebody, and that works well with the job because inevitably we'll be at home and stories will happen, and I don't have to feel the guilt of being out to dinner. Like I've had it happen so many times now where I've been out to dinner with another couple. We've been in a group, and I'm like, excuse me, I have to go work on something. Like it has happened too many times to count. Yeah. And it never seems to fail. And it almost becomes, my wife is like, why are we going out to dinner? Like, that you can't go out to dinner in March. You just can't do it. And so we don't do those things. We just don't do them. We stay home and we order in, we hang out with our dogs, stream some shows. And when the phone call comes in, okay, excuse me. Yeah. It's pretty simple. I don't have to step away from the table. I don't have to leave the restaurant. I've had that happen too many times. But the balance, everybody in any line of work who's a conscientious person has to figure out how to balance their life. Whether you have a 2-year-old at home and you're working in PR, or whether you're a 58-year-old reporter with 2 kids, like, you're not married, are you?
Not married, no. Okay. 31, not married.
Okay, yeah. Well, so again, great. You can throw yourself into this podcasting thing.
Yeah,
right?
I have. Yep.
You don't have to worry about being home tonight.
No.
Right? You don't have to worry about taking care of your kids.
Nope, not
so when I was 31, that's how I was like.
So it's interesting though, because you answer that in a way that's I've heard before, which is great, of talking about the family man you are now. But how did that not take a toll on you at all? Just the amount of work. I know you're obsessed with it, probably like I am with work now, or the last 10 years, where you want to do that. You want to break that story. You want to get to the next goal you have. But how did it not take a toll on you when you're spending 12 hours inside of a media room at the Broncos stadium?
It would. I mean, and there were times that you grew frustrated and sad about your personal life. That would happen, of course.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, how many times would I miss a party or not be able to attend a family function because I'm covering a game, or I'm having to go to some city, or whatever it would be. But again, I think as an adult, as a professional, you come to realize that's what the job entails. That's what it takes.
Sure.
And there's a level of dedication in anything that you do. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's the price that everybody pays in any line of work.
When you get to go to NFL Network, then get to ESPN, obviously your life changes, where you get a lot more spotlight for being for being a national insider rather than just being on a beat, which is very, very important. I don't think people who maybe pay attention to media as much as you and I understand how crazy it can be to work on a beat and gain that respect from players and coaches. But it goes up another level when you get to this stage. How did you take that step? How did you balance not just obviously covering Denver, but now getting those relationships, earning that trust across the league once you get on a platform like ESPN?
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that. I know when I got to ESPN, one of my bosses, Seth Markman, said to me when I first got hired, he said, "Welcome to the New York Yankees." And I said, "Welcome to the New York Yankees." He's like, "Yeah, everything that goes on here will be under the spotlight, just like everything that happens with the New York Yankees is under the spotlight." And it's true. I don't care what media outlet you work for. I would argue that certainly in the sports media space, there's not a place that is under more scrutiny, where there's more written about more people and more things than ESPN. Mm-hmm. So yes, we play for the Yankees in the media space. And I don't know that I did anything to adjust to that. It's just you go live your life. You do the job the way that you have always done the job, the way you've been trained to. You dedicate yourself, you work hard, you sacrifice, and whatever happens, happens. But there definitely is a lot that comes along with working for ESPN.
Is there more pressure, I know externally, from maybe social media or people inside the job, but is there more internal pressure on you to perform because you're on a bigger stage where it's, hey, I have to be the guy that breaks this. Hey, I have to be the guy that people trust more than anyone else?
Brandon, I would say that internal pressure is something that has always been there. There's a certain fire that whether I was covering the Denver Broncos, whether I was working for NFL Network, or whether I was covering ESPN. That's something that either you have or you don't. And sometimes it's your best friend and sometimes it's your worst enemy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are very happy to have that fire and sometimes you'd like it to be extinguished. But that fire's always been there. And so I don't care what it is, but I've always tried to compete as hard as I could.
You mentioned always having that fire there. You want to be a competitor, you want to win, but also having, maybe the work-life balance now with your wife, kids, dogs. But how did you ever like think about your mental health or that balance where, like, can you take time for yourself? Are you able to take time away from the phone? When were you able to start thinking about stuff like that?
Well, I would say that, probably, one of the harder periods I had in my life was, near the end of my time at the newspapers, going to NFL Network, still single. You're in your mid-30s.
Yeah. Were you in New York or LA?
I was in Denver,
Oh.
and then I decided to move to New York.
Okay, gotcha.
I never lived in LA. I moved into New York, and that was a tough time just because I thought at that time that you just moved to New York. I grew up in New York. Oh, all my friends are back in New York. But what I didn't account for was the fact that, like, yes, my friends are back, but my friends are now married. They have kids. They made other friends. They have their own lives.
Yep.
And they're not waiting for you to come back. Not that they don't love me or I don't love them. We all love each other, but everybody's lives evolve.
Yep.
And so it's just different. So I came back to a New York that was different as a single guy, and that was lonely for me when I got back here in New York in 2006. And then about 6 months into it, I met my wife, and
life changed.
Life changed.
The point about being lonely, I mean, you obviously know a little bit about my story, me talking to you beforehand and maybe doing a little bit of research, but what you just described is easily like my rock bottom, where I went back to Cincinnati. All my friends are here. I get to cover the team that I grew up loving, but everyone's married. They all have kids. They all have everything that I want. And I don't. And it put me at a point where I, unfortunately didn't want to live anymore. Thankfully got help. And I was an alcoholic. I'm sober now. Like, there's just so many things that I went down that rabbit hole. What were some of those darkest days for you moving back to New York and feeling that loneliness and realizing it?
I was living in New York City. And you'd think, I'm working for NFL Network at the time. You'd think, oh, this is a great life. You're covering the National Football League. You're working for this network that just got started. You're a sideline reporter. I love to point out, for their very first Thursday night games, the broadcast team was Brian Gumbel as the play-by-play man.
Wow.
Chris Collinsworth as the color commentator, and me as the sideline reporter. That was back in 2004, 5, 6, whatever it was. So we're talking 20 years ago. And again, I should have been really happy. And I just felt like there were things missing in my life. I just felt like, okay, my friends have moved on personally. Their personal lives have advanced to an area that I had hoped to get to. And I don't know, it's not an easy time. It's not easy to be 31, single, trying to establish yourself. Your friends are getting like that. That's a hard time, and there are a lot of hard times for a lot of people in a lot of walks of life.
Right.
But that was a tough chapter for me. It's a tough chapter for you. I'm sure it's a tough chapter for a lot of people. And the only thing I could say is, all you can do is you stay at it, and you have to know and believe that brighter days are coming. And they will.
They will. And I think I always looked for, love or satisfaction from things outside of myself, whether it be a sports job, a woman, a relationship, family, friends. And until you have that like satisfaction and pride in being you and not like looking for things outside of yourself, do you think you found that before you met your wife when you were in those low points?
I don't know. You're just looking. I know that there was a certain calm that I felt when I met my wife that I hadn't felt before. So I think if I hadn't found it, she helped bring it out. I think I was certainly looking for it. What came first? Hard to say.
Yeah.
Very deep philosophical discussion.
Sorry, that's the point of the show. My bad.
Yeah. I'd have to go back into my journal that I've been keeping to see, if I wrote something like that documented exactly.
Do you journal?
I've journaled every single day of my life since 1990.
Why do you pick that as what you go to being a writer, like naturally? Or?
It's therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's people like to exercise every day, right?
Yep.
I think that's a mental exercise to write in your journal. Mm-hmm. And like literally I have every day, like it's lengthy.
Yeah.
And there's not a day that's missing every single day since 1990.
Do you go back and read that journal when you're
Sometimes.
maybe having a tough day or something's going on?
You know,
or?
I sometimes used to. And what's interesting is that you realize that when you were struggling through that day back in 2006, you might open up a random day, July 14th, 2006, and you read and you're like, wow, I stayed up all night thinking about this. Wow, I ruminated about that. Wow, I was sad and depressed about this. Like, wow. And it just puts it into perspective sometimes when you can go back and read those problems on the page that at the time seemed like
the biggest
deal, that they could be very pressing, weighing on your soul, weighing on your heart. And you look at it and you're like, wow. Like, I'm sure there were nights that I lost sleep that the woman Susan didn't call me back. And I'm like, Susan? Who's Susan?
Yeah.
I don't even remember who Susan is anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, it just shows you how we all grow and evolve over time. But I also would recommend to everybody to keep a journal all the time. It is therapeutic.
I write notes in my phone, which isn't as therapeutic as writing it out, but journaling, obviously, in the mental health space is a great coping mechanism and something that can help you. You mentioned the two words, sad, depressed. Is there, and again, I'm respecting the boundaries. If there's things that you don't want to talk about, totally okay. When you look back at those days in 2006, 2005, you mentioned writing the journal, maybe feeling something in there. Was that loneliness that crept in the most? Were there other things that crept in, or
no? It's all those things. It's at that point in time, 2005. So how old am I? I'm in my mid 30s.
Yeah.
You know, and you're still single, and you don't have kids, and you wonder, am I going to meet anybody? Am I going to have kids? Am I going to move ahead of my like? It's all the things that everybody wonders and worries about. Like, I'm sure that I'm not unique in worrying how to advance my career, how to meet a person I really care about, whether I'm going to have children. Is this going to happen? Especially when, you know, all your close friends are living that life and you're not, and you feel left behind. And it's not left behind. You think it is at the time.
Yeah.
But it's you just going through your life, and everybody goes through life at a different pace.
Sure.
There's no right or wrong timeline for anybody. It happens when it should, as it should. And so I think the one thing that I would say to people, just be a little patient, give yourself a little grace and understanding. These things happen for everybody at different rates. And, you know, I think when I met my wife, that's when that calm and peacefulness started to overtake me, and that balance that I had been seeking showed up in my life. And then, by the way, then you're presented with other different challenges, right? Of managing your time and taking care of babies and dogs and doing all sorts of things that weren't an issue before.
Right.
So the point is, Brandon, there's always shit to worry about.
Yeah, there's always shit to worry about. Well, you mentioned leading up to that moment, meeting your wife and you guys getting married. I obviously know the incredibly powerful story behind you, your family, her previous marriage, and losing her husband. How did you guys meet originally?
Blind date.
Wow. Mutual friends, or?
Yeah.
This is before apps, obviously, right?
Yeah, before. That's the funny part about it is 2006. You know, we were not. There was no Tinder or Yaya. What are they? Or
I think that's Raya you're trying to get at.
Whatever the hell it is.
Now you sound like Belichick with what is it?
Face chat
or Snapbook or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, none of those things existed. And so there was a woman that knew her, who knew her neighbor, who knew my friend, and my friend knew me.
Wow, that was a long
I told people it was a double blind date because the people that knew her didn't know me, and my friends didn't know her. Like, no one knew anybody, but I showed up at her front door, and I was like, whoa, because obviously guys are very physical creatures initially. And I thought, here's a beautiful woman, and I was pretty smitten right away. Not so much for her.
Well, it's growing on her a little bit, maybe.
A little bit, hopefully.
You having that first date, and you mentioned finding that person that maybe balanced you out.
Yeah.
How did you know she was the one for you?
Well, again, when I met her, there have been other people I met. I'm like, oh boy, like I like this girl. And within a week or so,
you can tell. Yeah.
It just kind of would, and it didn't in this particular case. There was something about her strength, her independence, her spirit, her humor, her appearance, all of these things together that I just was drawn to, and still to this day am. So, it was different.
You meeting her in the time that you did, it was, I want to say, math right, 5-6 years after losing her husband.
So about 6 years later.
About 6 years. Losing her husband.
5.5, 6 years, yeah.
Losing her husband in one of the towers, and in the 9/11 attacks. When that comes up on a first date, I think maybe.
Well, it came up before the first date, actually.
I think a lot of guys would run away from that.
Yeah, well, she called the person that was setting us up and she said, he is aware that I lost my husband and I have a 1-year-old son, right? He is aware of that, correct? Yeah. And they're like, yeah. Well, her son was 1 at the time that this incident happened. At the time that we met, he was 6.
Yeah.
So, she he is aware of what he would be getting, right?
Yeah. So going into that, I think a lot of men maybe wouldn't be secure enough, strong enough, interested maybe in a story like that, which it sounds very, very low, but we live in a society where somebody.
But let's also be honest. Like, I had tried everything. So I've been out with women who didn't have kids. I've been out with women who didn't have diabetes. I've been out with and it hadn't worked. So why am I going to shut myself off? I'm open to trying anything. I'll meet her. Let's see what happens.
How was that for you growing? Obviously, you guys start dating, you get married, you meet her son. I know you guys have a daughter together now, and you consider her son yours. How has that relationship between you and in your family grown in maybe a unique way, where obviously that loss is something that she can never bring back and something that she always is going to have with her, but your whole family, including you and the daughter that you had between you and her, have really embraced and honored him throughout your life.
Well, listen, I moved into the house that they bought together. So his pictures are on our walls. He's a part of our life. It's not like there was some ugly divorce. This was a tragic situation. And, I'm not trying to replace him. His presence is there and will always be there. Mm-hmm. And we have evolved and we've built our world together. And it's just sort of how it's been over time. Terrible situation for her and the thousands that went through it. She's not alone. But to watch it up close and to know her and Joe Mayo's family, it's the whole thing. Obviously, I don't need to. People know how hard that is.
Yeah,
what a tragic situation it was.
You mentioned how she has been a strength and balance for you. Marriage, 2 people together. It's a team effort. Have you felt like you guys have been able to grow and balance together through not just that, but she probably didn't know what she was getting in with you, with having maybe a high pressure job.
We both didn't know.
Yeah.
She doesn't know much about the NFL, and she's learned about it to the point now where she actually enjoys watching some things and she understands some things. Still doesn't understand the rules of the game still, but she is open to trying. And I've learned. I always tell people they're like, how did you get 5 dogs? I'm like, well, and keep this in mind, Brandon. I'm like, well, I wanted 1. She wanted 5. So we compromised. We got 5.
You got 5. That's the old joke. She wanted a cat. I wanted a dog, so we got a cat.
We compromised.
Yeah, we compromised. But the openness, I think, in maybe the trauma from her, from going through that, and you also going through maybe that loneliness, and you guys maybe both feeling that emptiness from not having the balance and maybe that person to go to talk about that stuff. How has that vulnerability together in your relationship helped you personally throughout your life and career?
I don't know. Well, again, when I met her, I was at a low point. I wasn't, I was not real happy. I was lonely, and she brought fulfillment that I hadn't experienced. So
yeah,
I don't know. It was being vulnerable. It's just the way I came out of where I was at that time in my life. And she is such a strong person that I don't think that she felt vulnerable. Like she took on the world by herself to raise this young boy that she was left with suddenly and tragically. So I would never use the word vulnerable with my wife. Like I don't view her like that. She's much tougher and stronger than that and me.
I meant vulnerability as like a strength, not as being open and expressing your emotions, things in that regard, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I view it more as scars, and
sure.
It hardens you up a little bit, more than I don't mean vulnerable as a weakness, but
no.
but she's a very strong, tough person.
Well,
in the best of ways.
Well, and you've been there to see that, to help her in those moments. I guess I was asking more of how have you got more comfortable throughout maybe your life where you were by yourself feeling that loneliness to now be open and vulnerable yourself with her and the people around you?
Brandon, I will say this every now and then. I would love to be by myself again, just for a little bit. You welcome a little break. Like, oh, I'm by myself.
We'll clip this right to her.
Let me go watch golf and just do what I want, rather than having to, look after our children or the dogs, or something's wrong in the house, which my wife does a great job of. But you'll look back.
I'll call you in 5-10 years whenever that happens and be like,
man, oh my God, was right. Oh my God, I had no idea the things that I could have enjoyed and how I could have viewed life.
Well,
but you learn that over time, and you will.
I will. I'll let you know. Yeah. I'll report back. But moving on into just the stigma itself with mental health and the way that's grown and changed. Obviously, you being someone where 20 years ago, we weren't open. We wouldn't talk about it. You wouldn't tell me probably the things that you just told me on the couch. Absolutely not. And so now, how have you seen that change in the league, where we mentioned earlier right off the top how teams are having more people in the building, but even players?
Yeah, I think it's just become more acceptable for people to talk about challenges, and you hear players talk about the fact that they're going through difficult periods, and we've seen players take leave of absences because of those issues. Again, those are things that, again, a decade ago, 2 decades ago, wouldn't have come up, wouldn't have come out, and they do now. And people look at it like, okay, let's hope this person can get the help that they need, and it's understandable. And so I think there's sympathy and understanding from the world at large that might not have been there before.
Yeah, I think about, Brandon Marshall, Nate Burleson, who I mentioned, you've worked with. I've had him on this show. Great guys that really set that precedent and set that tone. I mean, when I went through my stuff, obviously not playing in the league, but reporting on it every day in Cincinnati, I was out of work for 2-3 weeks, wasn't on TV, wasn't in there. And I put out, a letter on social media saying, hey, this is what I'm going through. The first person out of anyone, and I don't think I've really put this out there, Joe Mixon's the first person that texted me. Said, hey, you good, man? It's like that would have never happened before, but it just showed, I think, I went back into that locker room and Coach Taylor and his wife had checked in on. I mean, it was incredible seeing the way people embrace that. Do you remember covering a story where you've seen maybe something on the mental health side of sports that really struck you, that really stood out, that you saw that stigma changing more than like kind of just seeing what we're talking about, maybe seeing some of the team personnel step up?
But it's so like I have a friend who lives in Michigan. He does a lot of work with the school program. His name is Steven Eisenberg, and he's given me hats and knapsacks that he's made up. And there's even a hat on my book that says "Sack the Stigma."
Yeah, they have an incredible. That's their campaign at Michigan. Yeah,
that's his campaign.
Oh, okay, awesome, incredible.
And and he's my friend, and he's a great guy. And so, he's doing everything he can to bring attention to it.
Yeah.
So it's right there for all of us to see. So shout out to Steven Eisenberg and to all the people who have worked to make this so mainstream.
What I've realized is that you have people that most people which have something like Mental Game, I go out, speak. We do stuff with foundations. It's incredible. I've worked with Tyler Helinski's family a ton. They're amazing. 95 to 99% of the people that are in it have either been through it themselves or someone in their family. So you find people that are super, super passionate about it. So I really appreciate you opening up and talking about that. In this episode, Adam has talked about that lonely feeling that I can relate to being a young guy in my career, single, alone, not really sure what's going on in my life. And I think it's really important for us men to talk about those feelings and be vulnerable. And that's why I want to tell you about Man Therapy. Go to mantherapy.org today to take their 18-point head inspection. It's a quick 2-minute test that asks you everyday questions about work, life, and your mental health so that they can help you if you are struggling with depression, anxiety, or feeling alone like Adam was in New York early in his career. You can really help yourself. And us guys, we are starting to break that stigma, but we still have plenty of work to do. If you want to find those tools and resources, go to mantherapy.org to take the best care of your mental health today. Suicide can be tough to talk about, but that's why the Happiness Project is helping us break the stigma. After losing their classmate Nick, his friends knew they had to do something to help save lives. So that's how the Happiness Project was born, a clothing brand to raise awareness for mental health and suicide prevention with t-shirts and hoodies to start a conversation and let people know, just like you are not alone. To learn more, follow @Happiness Project on social media and use the code MENTALGAME at happinessproject.com for 15% off your first order. Let's go into your career, maybe some of the highlights, lowlights, I don't know if I want to call them that, but things that stick out to you. Do you have a favorite story that you've broken? Which I know is probably the stereotypical podcast question.
It would be like asking a hitter, his favorite, to me, it would be the next one.
Okay, well then I'll flip it then. Like something that really sticks out of, man, I didn't get that one right, or I don't feel good about, is there a story that sticks out that really sunk you?
Hold on 1 second.
As there's one breaking right now when we're in here.
Yeah, where you got it?
All good. This is for people just listening on Spotify and Apple, just texting away on I guess this is probably the number one phone and the number two phones over on the side that people can't see. But I'm really good at filibustering, so I can give the play-by-play of a blue suit. You got some white Nikes on and just typing away. Although we're a week ahead of training.
This is an interesting text.
Is this with the Bengals? Are we getting that done in Cincinnati?
Yeah. Okay.
Now we're back. I love that.
We're back. Welcome to what it's like for my wife.
Yeah, great.
And my family.
It's a little bit busier probably in the spring than right now, but
you talked about.
See, I can't. You remembered what I was asking? No.
Well, you said low moments. Is that
low,
what you're saying?
Low moment, tough moment in the job.
I think just getting started in the field, 2 years looking for a job. Again, just at some point in time, wondering if you'll ever meet somebody, wondering if you'll ever get a job that will allow you to become a sports reporter, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds of rejection letters from hundreds of media outlets.
Yep.
Right. I couldn't get a single job. My first job that I took was the first full-time offer that I got from the Rocky Mountain News in September of 1990. And, I went to Denver. I like to think I was a little bit ahead of the curve because a lot of people wound up moving to Colorado after that. And I didn't voluntarily move to Colorado. Colorado chose me rather than me choosing it.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable. Love the place. But 2 years of looking for a job, that was pretty depressing too.
Yeah, sports journalism, full rejection, tough, and sending out tapes, obviously. Were you sending out tapes?
No.
Do you have reel? No, you were just
I was writing articles.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
Writing articles. Wasn't tapes, no.
No, the tapes, the reels, those can be real tough. Some cool things that you got coming up or things that you're working on now. So golf is now in the picture for you?
Nobody's asked me to be on the British Open coverage yet. So
I know, but I saw, what was this, 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
I saw you on your first tournament.
I was a course reporter for PGA Tour Live, ESPN Plus.
Yeah.
And it was outstanding, following Rory McIlroy and Keegan Bradley around that day. And was it coincidental that on the day that I was with them, that both shot -6, both were in second place, and Keegan went on to win the tournament? Was it coincidental? I don't know.
I don't think so. You
I'm
can
just
look
asking.
we'll look at the cybermetrics or whatever you would call that with golf. Anything left on the bucket list for you? You covered how many Super Bowls? You've talked about
a lot left on the bucket list. But
okay, well, I'm curious.
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, let's see. What else do we want to do? We want to take over for Jimmy Pitaro and run the company. We want to host Good Morning America. We want to host the ESPYs. We'd like to produce some of our own films, some 30 for 30s. There's a lot of things that we like to do, Brandon.
You think you could do better than Shane coming up next week in the Shane Gillis is hosting the ESPYs, right? You got that type of humor?
No. But you know what? If Peyton Manning could do it, then maybe I could do it too.
Yikes. Okay.
So a lot of joke writers.
Yeah, a lot of shots, There are people that help. You mentioned 30 for 30, and we'll wrap here in a sec. But do you have something that like you remember covering or that hasn't been done in a way that you wanted to tell that story where you'd be like, I'd really love to tell that in a 30 for 30 or in that documentary setting? I'm just as a storyteller.
I'm always thinking of things stories that I'd like to do. Always thinking of things like that. And every year, not every year, but some years it feels like I'm fortunate enough to get to tell a story for Sunday Countdown.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do something and it runs during the season. This off season, I haven't done anything yet. There's a couple of calls that I've made. Nothing had come together. Just reminded me I got to call back somebody. But I again, whether it's golf, whether it's doing sidelines in an NBA game, whether it's doing a feature story, I often like to get out of my NFL cage and show that, yes, I once was a writer. I've written 5 books. I know how to write. I like other assignments, and there's such a routine and comfort to covering the NFL. I've done it for 35 years and I love it. And it's an honor and a privilege. And believe me, I hope I get to do it for a long time more. But sometimes it's fun to step out into a different territory with people you don't know and haven't met, and to just see what that's like. That's fun to me. And so I've enjoyed it. Hopefully there'll be other opportunities, and we'll just have to see.
Looking forward to seeing those stories. Storytelling for me is my favorite thing that I get to do. And so, one, thank you for sharing your story here. The last thing I'll ask is just advice to someone that wants to go into sports journalism. Maybe they're that writer at Northwestern right now that's as a student thinking about getting into it.
What I'd say, Brandon, is, again, I wouldn't give the advice just to a student journalist, because the advice that I would give them would be the same that anybody in any line of work would be getting. And that is basically, when you're in college, you've got 4 summers to do internships and meet people and learn things and see what you like and see what you don't like. And you've got 4 years of college to try clubs and new things and experiences, because you don't get those opportunities very often. And when you get those opportunities, be the first one in, be the last one out. Do everything you can. Volunteer, sacrifice, stay late, whatever it is. So, again, it's just try to do things, try to gain experience, give everything you got, like all cliched stuff, but those are the things that I think do matter.
And 99% of the people in our business want to help the next and have been that person bugging the shit out of whoever that sports reporter or writer was. Shefty, thanks so much for coming on the Mental Game, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your story. I'll let you get back to breaking some of that on Twitter here soon. But
let's see. We only have
how many
5 mixed texts in addition to the one that I responded to right away.
Okay, not bad, but we got the other phone. Shefty, appreciate you so much for coming on the Mental Game. We'll see everyone right back here next week. And that was awesome, getting to go to ESPN and interview Adam Schefter. As you heard and saw at the end of the interview, he was back on his phone, getting to break those stories and get the latest insight from his sources. He is one of, if not the top NFL reporter in the world, so I can't thank him enough for coming on the Mental Game, especially this close to football season. Next week, another surprise guest. We're going from sports to comedy. That is your one hint. A comedian right back here next week on the Mental Game.